Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7. The first few chapters of the book of Matthew actually have all the fundamental teachings of Jesus Christ. And if you want to understand the basic tenets of Christianity, this is one of the books that you go to. This is one of the chapters you study. Here the Lord said, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. And for in the same way as you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." And this is a very familiar verse. The Lord said, "Do not judge." The word judge means to, literally, it means to put somebody on trial. That means in your mind, you have put a person on trial and you have drawn a final conclusion about that person. And the Lord said, never do that, because that belongs to God. Only God can do that. But human beings have a tendency to do that, and as a Christian, you cannot do it. You are not permitted, because it's going to affect your life. It's going to ruin your own life. He said, never do that. Never, ever put a person on trial in your mind and draw a final conclusion about his or her life. The word judge and the next word judgment are slightly different, but one word means to put somebody on trial. The other word means to make a final decision. So the Lord said, don't do that. Now, a few years ago, I had a dream. And in that dream, it was a terrible dream. It's okay. In the dream, I had seen certain things about a family in the church. And everything I saw was very bad. And when I woke up, I remembered that dream so well that I was able to describe it. And my immediate tendency was to call the family and tell them what I saw about them. And this family, because I have known them for a long time, and what I have seen about them wasn't so good, I know that this family was going through a deception. And on the outside, they are very nice people. A lot of great things that you will encounter when you meet them. But in the inside, they were totally the opposite. Now, they have been exposed. In my dream, I have seen the true color of these people. And my immediate tendency was to call them, or whenever I meet them next, to tell them, this is what I saw about you, and you need to change. And then what happened is, I talked to Rena about this dream, and Rena said, don't tell them. The Lord showed you so that you would pray for them, and they can come out of it. That was a big challenge, because, okay, I said, okay, we'll pray. So we prayed immediately. Then after that, whenever I thought about that dream, whenever I thought about these people, I would frequently pray about what I saw, and I would pray that they will come out of it, they will come out of that deception. But then at the same time, I had this tendency to tell them. So I said, Rena, maybe I should tell them. And then Rena said, no, don't tell them, just pray. But this thought would always come back to me. I should go and tell them. I finally talked to Apostle Lloyd, and he also said, don't tell them. Don't tell them. Don't ever tell them what you saw, but pray for them. So I said, okay, I'll pray. Then we prayed together on the phone. So I thought I was settled. But then again, weeks after weeks, although I am praying for them with all sincerity that I believed I had for them, but this thought would again come to me. I should tell them. I should call them. And then because I had seen this dream, and because I have received information about them, whenever I meet them or whenever I talk to them, I will see something about them very clearly, because I already know what they are in the inside. And this thought would always nag me, at the back of my mind. I should tell them. Then finally, I realized what's happening. I learned something about discernment. I learned something about judgment, judging people. Because when you judge, you are condemning them. When you judge, you are putting them on trial. When you judge, you are drawing a final conclusion about their life. And this is not a final conclusion about their lives. This is the present conclusion. And the Lord wanted me to pray for them so that through my prayer, they would come out of it. And finally, I decided I'm not going to tell them. It took me a while. It took me, I think, about 6 months. So you can imagine the struggle that I went through 6 months, the tendency to tell them. Then finally I said, no, I'm not going to tell them, but I'll continue to pray. And the day I decided I will not tell them, the thought stopped coming to me. And I continued to pray, and as a result of the prayer, and I believe because of God's grace, after a period of time, I've seen some changes in that family. But what I learned was the tendency to judge people based on what you see or what you receive about them, the information you receive, regardless of the source. I also learned one more thing. If God is giving you information about somebody, you are already on a test. When God reveals something to you about somebody, you are entering into a test because you will be tempted to do something or to speak something based on the information you got from God about a person or a group of people. And if it is God, I believe God will give you the strength and the grace to overcome your own tendency to put people on test or to judge people, in other words. And I went through that struggle for 6 months, and I overcame. The moment I gave it to the Lord, and I said, Lord, I need your help, because I understand I'm not supposed to disclose to them, but I'm supposed to pray for them. I need your help because I've been judging them. And the moment I said that, I got the strength, and I was able to overcome that. Now, remember, judging is always in the mind. You may never speak it, but you are judging. But your behavior will reflect what you're thinking about them. And that's the reason the Lord said, never, ever judge people. You may never say anything to them or about them to others, but your behavior, your attitude towards them will always be based on what you are thinking in your mind about them. And this is Christian life. This is how you are expected to live without judging others. And I learned this, that if the information is from God, God will give you the grace to overcome your own infirmities, your own shortcomings, your own tendency to judge others. And that means every time you get some information from God about somebody, you are already put on a test. How are you going to use that information? How are you going to deal with that information? And what are you going to do with that information? And if it is from God, God will give you the grace, so that finally you will start doing what you are expected to do and also overcome your own infirmity, your own weakness. I also learned another thing from this, that if that information is not from God, because we are very likely to get information from other sources, and if what I saw wasn't from God, I believe I would have disclosed to them, because I would have never got the grace not to overcome my own weakness. So I discerned something, that while in my spirit I can get information from God, my spirit is also open to receive information from other sources. And what happens when you receive information from other sources is that you will not be able to overcome that temptation to disclose the information in a wrong way. You will already judge the people, and you will harm the people by disclosing it to them. You will never have the grace because the source is wrong. And many times what you believe, and I learned one more thing by going through this process, many times what you believe about others could be a reflection of your own weakness. Because in the next verse, the Lord said, do not put people on trial in your mind and make a final conclusion about their character or about their life. He said, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? See, maybe you are seeing the plank in your own eye when you look at somebody else. And you think that there's a small speck of dust in that person's eye. So what you're seeing, what you're perceiving, what you think that you're receiving from God could be a reflection of who you are actually. And then you're transferring it to somebody else. And that is called deception in the Bible. One of the gifts of the Holy Spirit is discernment. To discern things correctly, to discern the source of the information that you have. Is listed in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. And I believe as Christians, we need to have discernment. We should be able to discern the source of the information we have in our mind. Is it from God or is it from the enemy? Is it a product of your own weaknesses or is it God? You need to be able to discern it. And in this process of seeing a dream and then not disclosing it to the family, but praying for them, it took me, I don't know, I said 6 months, maybe it's more or maybe it's slightly less, but not exactly 180 days. I didn't mean that way, 6 months, but it took me a while. About 6 months time, I went through the struggle through that temptation to tell them who they are. But that wasn't the reason God told me that. The reason God told me or disclosed that information to me was that I would pray, continually pray and intercede for them. And by going through that, I learned 3 things. One, that a true information that comes from God will help you to overcome your own struggles, your own weaknesses, your own temptations, your own drawbacks in your life. Number 2, I learned that if the source is not God, you will disclose it and you will never overcome that temptation because the source is not God. It's another source. It's a devious source. And you will have that temptation until you give in to it. And I also learned that many times what we consider to be a revelation or an information from God could be a reflection of our own weaknesses, which we transfer to others and see it in others' lives. That's where the Lord said, do not try to see a small speck in somebody's eyes when you have a large-sized plank in your own eyes. Because of the large plank in your own eyes, you are seeing it as a small thing in somebody else's eyes. In other words, your big problem, you are seeing in somebody else's life as a small problem, and you're trying to help them. How can you help them unless you have taken out your own problem? Unless you have confessed, unless you have brought your own weakness to God and allowed Him to deal with it, as we sang in that song, bring it back to the cross. So when the Lord said, do not judge, because you will also be judged, He was teaching one of the basic foundational tenets of Christianity, of Christian living. And this is how we are called to live. And it's not easy from world standard. It's a tough thing to not to judge somebody. And I think God loves us so much that in our lives, He allows us to go through situations so that He can help us overcome our tendency to judge others. That means some of the encounters you have in your life with people, whether they are believers or unbelievers, are meant to help you to kill that tendency to judge others. Whether you speak it or not, whether you say it or not, many times we judge people. And He didn't say don't judge Christians. He said don't judge others. That includes both believers and non-believers. He doesn't give us the permission to judge non-believers. So I think this is one of the most important things we need to learn and practice. And I believe once you decide to do something or practice something, God gives you plenty of opportunities. Plenty of opportunities will come to your life so that you can do it. You can do it and you do it and do it again and again and again until it becomes your nature. So I would encourage you to use every opportunity God gives to you and overcome your tendency to judge others, to put somebody on trial in your mind and to make a final conclusion or a final decision about that person or their character. So with that, I will close it.